Jack Connors had always prided himself on his skill with machines. As an engineer aboard the mining vessel Stellar Prospect, he spent his days fixing broken systems and ensuring the ship ran smoothly. But even the best skills couldn't save him from bad luck. His routine survey mission on an unexplored moon had gone sideways when his small craft, Explorer 12, was caught in a magnetic storm. The ship's navigation system spun out of control, and before he could stabilize it, he crashed into the dense jungle below. The landing wasn't graceful, but Jack had walked away with nothing more than a bruised shoulder. His ship, on the other hand, wasn't as lucky. The thrusters were fried, and the communication array was smashed beyond quick repair. Jack sighed as he surveyed the damage. "Guess it's just me and my toolkit," he muttered, grabbing his portable repair kit and setting to work. He had no intention of staying on this alien moon any longer than necessary. The jungle around him was like nothing he'd ever seen. The trees glowed faintly in the low light, their leaves shifting colors in a slow, mesmerizing rhythm. Strange chirps and hums echoed through the air, but Jack kept his focus on his work. The sooner he fixed his transmitter, the sooner he could call for a rescue. Hours passed, and frustration began to creep in. Every time Jack made progress, another issue seemed to pop up. His patience was wearing thin, and his stomach growled in protest. "Great, just great," he muttered, kicking a piece of debris. Deciding he needed to clear his head, Jack ventured into the jungle to gather his thoughts. He carried a small multi-tool for protection, though he wasn't sure how useful it would be if he ran into trouble. The glowing trees provided just enough light to navigate, and Jack soon found himself drawn to a faint pulsing glow in the distance. As he pushed through the undergrowth, the jungle opened into a clearing unlike anything he'd ever seen. At the center stood a series of towering crystal structures, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly light. The ground around them was marked with intricate patterns, as though carved by giant hands. Jack's engineering instincts kicked in as he approached the crystals, marveling at their design. They didn't look natural. Whatever this was, it had been built with purpose. But before he could investigate further, a strange sensation washed over him. It felt as though the air had thickened, buzzing faintly against his skin. Jack turned slowly and realized he was no longer alone. Emerging from the shadows were figures, tall, slender beings with skin that shimmered like the crystals. Their eyes glowed softly, and they moved with a grace that was both intimidating and mesmerizing. Jack froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He raised his hand slowly, hoping the universal gesture of peace would translate. The aliens didn't seem hostile, but their gazes were intense, studying him like he was some rare specimen. One of them, a regal-looking woman with an elaborate headdress, stepped forward. She spoke in a language Jack didn't understand, her voice melodic yet commanding. "Hi," Jack said nervously, tapping the translator device on his wrist. The device crackled for a moment before spitting out a rough translation. "Outsider, you have entered the sacred ground." Jack winced. Sacred ground? That didn't sound good. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to disturb anything. My ship crashed, and I was just—" He gestured vaguely at the jungle behind him. The woman tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing. She said something else, and this time the translator caught more of the meaning. "You arrived during the rite of choosing." Jack had no idea what that meant, but the way the other aliens were murmuring, it didn't sound casual. He opened his mouth to explain further, but the woman raised a hand, silencing him. She turned to the others and spoke in a commanding tone. Whatever she said, it made the rest of the group look at Jack with a mix of curiosity and was that approval. Before Jack could protest, two of the aliens gently but firmly took him by the arms, leading him toward the crystal structures. His mind raced as he tried to piece together what was happening. The translator on his wrist provided a fragment of their conversation. He must participate. He was chosen. Chosen? Chosen for what? Jack muttered, but no one answered. As the aliens led him deeper into the clearing, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his day was about to get even stranger. Jack Connors wasn't sure what he had signed up for, if he had signed up for anything at all. The aliens leading him deeper into the clearing spoke softly among themselves, their melodic voices echoing faintly off the crystal structures. Jack's wrist translator struggled to keep up, spitting out disjointed phrases like, "a rare sign," and "he must be tested." None of it reassured him. The group stopped before a large circular platform made of smooth, reflective stone. It looked ancient, yet well-maintained, as if it had been used for countless generations. Surrounding the platform were alien women dressed in elaborate ceremonial attire. Their vibrant, shimmering garments seemed to radiate with the same glow as the crystals. The tallest among them, the one who had first addressed Jack, stepped forward. Her headdress sparkled in the dim light, making her presence even more commanding. "I'm really sorry," Jack said, his voice breaking the heavy silence. "This has all been a big misunderstanding. I'm just a guy who crashed here. I'm not part of whatever this is." He gestured at the platform, his hands moving nervously. The leader raised her hand to silence him. Her expression was unreadable, but her glowing eyes fixed on Jack with an intensity that made him feel exposed. She spoke slowly, her words flowing like water. The translator chimed in. "You have entered the right of choosing. By ancient law, your presence here binds you to it." Jack blinked. "Right of choosing. Look, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just trying to fix my ship and get out of here." The woman didn't seem to care about his protests. "The right must proceed," she said firmly. Her gaze softened slightly as she added, "Outsider, your arrival is rare. Perhaps it is fate." The murmurs among the other aliens grew louder. Jack caught fragments of their discussions through the translator. "He is not one of us, but he walked the sacred path, and the stars have sent him." He felt the weight of their stares, equal parts curious and expectant. Jack rubbed the back of his neck, trying to think of a way out. "Okay, but just so we're clear, what exactly is this right about?" Before anyone could answer, another alien stepped forward. She was younger than the others, her vibrant green skin shimmering like polished jade. Her features were sharp yet graceful, and her eyes held an undeniable spark of curiosity. She introduced herself as Lyra, the daughter of the tribe's leader. "The right of choosing," Lyra explained in surprisingly clear, translated English, "is our way of selecting mates. The strongest, wisest, and most capable individuals prove themselves worthy to join our tribe and continue its legacy." Jack's stomach dropped. "Mates? As in?" He trailed off, hoping he had misunderstood. Lyra tilted her head, her expression a mix of amusement and confusion. "Yes, the chosen participants compete in trials to demonstrate their value. Only the most deserving are selected." Jack's hands shot up. "Whoa, hold on. I didn't sign up for that. I'm not here to join your tribe. I just want to go home." Lyra's gaze flickered with amusement, though her tone remained serious. "You walked into the sacred ground during the rite. By tradition, you are now part of it. To leave would dishonor our customs." Jack groaned. "Great, just great. So what happens if I, lose?" Lyra's playful expression faded. "If you fail, you will be allowed to leave, but it would bring shame upon you and our people." Jack sighed, realizing there was no easy way out of this. The tribe's customs were clearly deeply rooted, and arguing would only make things worse. He glanced around at the crowd, who now seemed more curious than hostile. The other male contenders, tall and imposing with rugged features, stood at the edge of the clearing. They regarded Jack with a mix of amusement and skepticism. "Fine," Jack said reluctantly. "I'll play along. But don't expect much. I'm just a human, not some super-powered alien." Lyra smiled, the spark of curiosity returning to her eyes. "We shall see, human." The trials began almost immediately. The first challenge was a test of strength. Participants had to lift a heavy stone pillar and carry it across the clearing. Jack watched as the other contenders hoisted the massive stones with ease, their powerful muscles rippling under the moonlight. When Jack's turn came, he quickly realized brute strength wouldn't cut it. Instead, he grabbed a sturdy branch from the jungle and used it as a lever, carefully balancing the pillar on the branch and rolling it forward. The crowd murmured in surprise at his ingenuity. By the time Jack finished, his arms were trembling, but he was still standing. Lyra watched him with a mixture of admiration and amusement. "You may not have strength," she said, "but you have cleverness. That, too, is valued." Jack sighed, wiping the sweat from his brow. He couldn't help but wonder what the next trial had in store. The air around Jack buzzed with anticipation. The first trial had been a challenge of strength, but the second trial was different. This one required brains. Lyra had explained that this test would measure the contestants' ability to solve complex puzzles and think under pressure. Jack wasn't sure how well he would do. Sure, he'd spent his life fixing machines, but solving alien riddles in a strange jungle wasn't exactly his idea of a good time. A large stone archway appeared in the distance, surrounded by tall, glowing plants. It was as if the very landscape had shifted to accommodate the trial. At the base of the archway was a giant stone tablet, etched with strange symbols and patterns. Several of the other contestants stood near the tablet, already examining the puzzle. Jack swallowed, his throat dry. He didn't have a clue what the symbols meant, but he wasn't going to back down now. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, his mind racing for any way to make sense of this alien puzzle. The crowd fell silent as Jack approached the stone tablet. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "The puzzle is simple," she explained, though her tone carried a hint of mischief. "You must align the symbols correctly. Only then will you be able to move to the final stage." Jack looked at the symbols, trying to make sense of the strange carvings. The shapes seemed to shift in the light, as if mocking him. There were circles, triangles, and spirals, all arranged in an intricate pattern. He ran his fingers over the surface, but nothing seemed to click. The other contestants were already trying to manipulate the stones around the tablet, but their attempts were slow and clumsy. Suddenly, Jack remembered something. He'd seen patterns like this before. Back on Earth, during his engineering days, he had come across ancient puzzles used in ancient machinery. The symbols weren't just random. They were based on geometric principles, each one connected to the others. With newfound determination, Jack started to rearrange the symbols. His fingers moved quickly, aligning the triangles and circles in a way that made sense to him. The stones under his touch seemed to hum softly, almost as if they were responding to his actions. The crowd watched intently, their faces a mixture of curiosity and surprise. As Jack adjusted the final symbol, the ground beneath him rumbled. He stepped back, watching in awe as the stone tablet slowly shifted, revealing a hidden compartment filled with shimmering crystals. The crowd erupted into applause, and Jack let out a relieved breath. He'd done it. He had solved the puzzle. Lyra smiled at him, clearly impressed. "You have done well, human," she said. "Your mind is sharp, even if your strength is not." Jack wiped the sweat from his brow, feeling a mixture of pride and exhaustion. The trial had been harder than he'd expected, but somehow he'd made it through. The other contestants, who had struggled with the puzzle, looked at him with a mix of respect and disbelief. It seemed Jack had proven himself more than just a stranger from another world. "Not bad for a human," one of the taller contestants muttered, clearly grudgingly impressed. The others nodded, though none of them said anything more. They were still sizing him up, and Jack could feel their eyes on him. He had a long way to go before he'd truly be accepted by them, but for now, he had earned a moment of victory. The third and final trial was about to begin. Lyra turned to Jack, her expression serious now. "The final trial is the hardest," she said. "It will test your heart. You must face your deepest fear and overcome it." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Fear. That was a concept he thought he understood, but facing it head-on was something entirely different. He glanced around at the other contestants, who looked as nervous as he felt. But none of them seemed ready to back down. The fear in their eyes only made Jack more determined. He wasn't going to let fear stop him now. Before Jack could say anything, Lyra signaled for the trial to begin. The ground beneath them trembled, and the air grew heavy. Suddenly, a massive door made of the same glowing stone as the crystals opened in front of them, revealing a dark, twisting labyrinth beyond. You must enter the labyrinth and confront what you fear most, Lyra explained, her voice eerily calm. Only those who can conquer their fear will emerge victorious. Jack took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. The labyrinth was dark and ominous, its twisting corridors filled with shadows. But it wasn't the labyrinth that scared him. It was what lay within it. He had no idea what kind of challenge awaited him inside, but he knew that whatever it was, he would have to face it head-on. One by one, the other contestants stepped into the labyrinth, each one disappearing into the shadows. Jack hesitated for a moment, then squared his shoulders and followed them, knowing that the final test would push him to his limits. But he was ready. He had to be. As he entered the labyrinth, the door slammed shut behind him. The darkness closed in around him, and for the first time in his life, Jack was truly alone. The labyrinth was dark. Jack could barely see his hand in front of his face, the shadows pressing in from all sides. The air smelled musty, filled with the scent of ancient stone and damp earth. His heart pounded in his chest, and every step he took seemed to echo in the silence, magnifying the unease in his stomach. He wasn't afraid of the dark, but there was something unsettling about this place. It was as if the very walls were alive, watching his every move. His boots scraped against the uneven stone floor, the only sound breaking the stillness. He knew he had to keep moving. There was no turning back now. Jack swallowed, trying to calm his racing mind. His first instinct had been to rush through the maze, but he quickly realized that might not be the best idea. He wasn't sure what lay ahead, but he knew this trial wasn't about speed. It was about facing whatever fear this labyrinth would throw at him. The corridor he was in seemed to stretch on forever. Jack came to a split in the path. To the left, the passage was narrower, with faint light flickering from somewhere far off. To the right, the path seemed to open up into a wider chamber. He hesitated, weighing his options. Something told him to go left, to follow the light. As he moved down the narrower path, the air grew colder. Jack wrapped his arms around himself for warmth, but the chill didn't seem to ease. He rounded a corner and found himself in a small chamber. In the center of the room was a strange, dark pool of water that seemed to glow with an eerie blue light. Jack frowned, unsure of what to make of it. The water's surface was still, but something about it felt wrong. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. Jack. He spun around, his heart racing. He was sure no one else had entered the labyrinth. The voice had been soft, almost a whisper, but it was unmistakable. Jack. It was his mother's voice. Jack froze, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. He hadn't heard that voice in years. She had passed away when he was young. The memories of her had been buried deep, tucked away where he thought they could never reach him again. Mom. His voice cracked, the words slipping out before he could stop it. The voice echoed around the chamber, the sound of it twisting in the air, pulling at his heartstrings. Jack, it's time to come home. The words hit him like a punch to the stomach. A flood of memories rushed forward. His childhood, his mother's soft laughter, the way she had always protected him. But just as quickly, those memories turned dark. The images shifted to the last days before she passed, the hospital room, the hollow silence after she was gone. Come back, Jack, the voice whispered again, a little louder this time. You don't have to do this. Come home. Jack's chest tightened, the weight of grief threatening to swallow him whole. He had buried the pain of her loss for years, telling himself he was fine, that he had moved on. But here, in the labyrinth, her voice brought it all crashing back. For a moment, he almost believed it, almost let himself believe that going back to her, to a time when everything was simple and safe, would be the answer. But he knew better. Jack closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He remembered what he had learned over the years. The fear wasn't real. It was just a trick of the mind. His mother wouldn't want him to give up now, not after everything he had worked for. Not this time, Jack whispered to himself. When he opened his eyes, the voice was gone. The air was still and silent once more. The illusion had faded, but the weight of it lingered in his chest. Jack didn't look back. He couldn't afford to dwell on the past. He had to keep moving forward. He turned away from the pool and continued down the narrow path. The walls of the labyrinth seemed to close in around him, but he pressed on, determined to face whatever else this trial had in store. Suddenly, the ground beneath him shook. The floor cracked open, and Jack stumbled forward, barely catching himself. From the fissure, a giant shadow rose. The creature that emerged was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was a massive beast, its body covered in thick, leathery skin, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Its jaws snapped open with a deafening roar, and Jack's blood ran cold. This was it, the final test. His heart raced, and every instinct in his body screamed at him to run. But he couldn't. He had faced the darkness within himself. Now he had to face the monster. Without thinking, Jack reached for a nearby rock and hurled it at the creature. It didn't do much, but it was enough to buy him a few moments. The beast turned toward him, its massive claws swiping through the air. Jack dodged, narrowly avoiding the strike. His breath came in short gasps as he scrambled for a better position. The creature lunged again, but this time, Jack was ready. He grabbed a sharp stick from the ground and used it to stab the beast in the side, aiming for its soft underbelly. The creature howled in pain, but it didn't stop. It was stronger, faster, and more relentless than anything Jack had faced before. But Jack didn't give up. He fought with everything he had, using his wits and his strength to outmaneuver the creature. Finally, with one last powerful strike, the beast collapsed, defeated. Jack stood there, chest heaving, his body shaking. He had done it. He had faced his fear, both the pain of his past and the terrifying monster in front of him. And he had survived. Jack stumbled through the labyrinth, his body aching from the struggle with the beast. His breath was ragged, his heart still racing from the adrenaline. But he had done it. He had survived. For the first time since entering the maze, he allowed himself a moment of relief. The monster was gone, and so was the fear that had gripped him. The only thing left now was the final challenge, whatever it might be. The labyrinth had become a place of tests, both mental and physical. And now, it seemed the hardest part was still ahead. The walls seemed to close in as Jack made his way forward, the passage narrowing with every step. He could feel the weight of the trials bearing down on him, the pressure of the unknown pressing against his chest. Suddenly, the path opened up into a vast chamber. The stone walls were etched with symbols, glowing softly in the dim light. In the center of the room stood a figure, tall and imposing, draped in flowing robes. The figure turned to face Jack, and for the first time since entering the labyrinth, Jack felt a sense of recognition. The figure's eyes were familiar, kind, but also ancient. They belonged to the one being who could end this trial, the Guardian. The Guardian's voice echoed through the chamber, deep and commanding. Jack, you have proven your strength and your intellect. But now you must prove your heart. Jack's pulse quickened, the words sinking in. He had faced his fears, fought the beasts, solved the puzzles. But now he had to face something even harder. This trial would test his ability to connect, to show compassion, and to trust others. What do you mean? Jack asked, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. The Guardian stepped forward, their presence filling the room. You have made it this far, but the final test is not one of survival. It is one of acceptance. You must prove that you can embrace your role, your place within this world. Jack furrowed his brow. He wasn't sure what the Guardian meant. His mind raced. He wasn't just fighting monsters and solving puzzles. He was being asked to prove that he could belong, that he could find a purpose here among these alien people. The Guardian raised their hand, and the room seemed to shift. The stone walls faded, replaced by an open field. In the distance, Jack could see figures moving, alien figures, ones he had not seen before. The landscape was unfamiliar. A vast, rolling plain under a sky filled with two suns. He was no longer in the labyrinth. He was somewhere else. "This is your final trial," the Guardian said, their voice calm. "You must walk among them and prove that you can offer something they need. You must earn their trust, and in doing so, earn your place among us." Jack's eyes scanned the field. The figures he saw in the distance were unlike any of the alien beings he had encountered before. They were smaller, more delicate in appearance, with pale skin and translucent wings. They seemed peaceful, their movements graceful, but they also seemed wary of him. Jack had no idea how to approach them. He didn't know what they needed, what would earn their trust. "Why me?" Jack asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "What can I offer them?" The Guardian smiled, though it was a gentle expression, full of wisdom. "It is not about what you offer in terms of material value, Jack. It is about what you offer in spirit, compassion, empathy, the willingness to understand others. These are the things that will connect you to them." Jack nodded slowly, taking in the Guardian's words. It felt like a heavy burden. How could he prove these things? How could he convince these alien beings, who were so different from him, that he belonged here? He had spent his life working alone, relying on his own strength and intellect. But this was different. This was about understanding others, about becoming part of something bigger than himself. Without another word, the Guardian gestured for Jack to go forward. Slowly, Jack moved toward the field, his feet heavy with the weight of uncertainty. As he approached the group of alien beings, they stopped and turned toward him. Their wings fluttered softly, their eyes wide and unblinking. They seemed nervous, almost afraid, but Jack didn't turn away. He took a deep breath and stopped a few paces from them. For a moment, the world felt like it had stopped moving. The silence between them was thick, filled with the unspoken questions that hung in the air. Jack looked into their eyes, trying to communicate without words. He had no idea what they needed, but he knew that his actions would speak louder than anything he could say. He smiled, though it was a tentative one. And then he did something that felt right. He extended his hand, offering a gesture of peace. The beings hesitated for a moment, their wings twitching with uncertainty. Jack held his hand steady, his expression open. He wasn't sure if they would accept it, but he knew that he had to try. Slowly, one of them stepped forward. It was a small being, delicate-looking but with eyes full of curiosity. The alien extended its own hand, its skin cool to the touch. Jack's heart skipped a beat as they made contact. The simple act of connection was enough. The alien being had accepted him. A sense of warmth spread through Jack's chest, a sense of relief. He had done it. He had shown that he could understand them, that he could connect. And in that moment, Jack realized something profound. He didn't have to be perfect. He didn't have to have all the answers. He just had to be open, willing to learn, and to offer his heart. The other beings stepped forward, their expressions softening as they gathered around him. The trial had ended. Jack had earned his place. He wasn't just a human in a strange land anymore. He was part of something bigger, a family, a tribe, a community. As the beings surrounded him, Jack smiled. For the first time since arriving on this alien world, he felt truly at home. The days that followed Jack's acceptance into the alien tribe were unlike anything he had ever known. The life he had imagined, filled with endless challenges and dangers, had transformed into something more peaceful and fulfilling. The aliens, who had once seemed so distant and unknowable, had now become his companions, showing him their ways, their culture, and their kindness. Jack was learning to adapt to this new world. The tribe's language, though difficult at first, was beginning to make sense to him. He spent hours practicing, listening to the alien beings speak and trying to mimic their sounds. They were patient with him, guiding him through the basics of their communication. It wasn't long before Jack could understand the simplest phrases, and with time, he began to speak in their language, though his words were still clumsy. The tribe didn't mind. They were just happy to have him there. One afternoon, as Jack walked through the village with the small alien being who had first accepted his hand, he noticed the way the others looked at him. Their eyes were filled with curiosity, yes, but also something more: respect. Jack had earned their trust, and now he was beginning to earn their admiration. He wasn't just a human, he was one of them. The village was a sight to behold. The buildings were made of smooth stone and natural materials, blending seamlessly into the landscape. The homes were shaped like large, graceful shells, with large windows that allowed the sun's light to flood the rooms. The air smelled of fresh herbs and the earth, and the sky above them was painted with the colors of two suns, setting in perfect harmony. Jack felt a sense of peace here that he had never experienced before. As he walked, the small alien beside him pointed to various plants and flowers, explaining their uses in their native tongue. Jack smiled and nodded, his understanding growing with each passing day. The tribe lived in harmony with nature, using the plants for food, medicine, and spiritual practices. They had a deep respect for the land and its resources, something Jack admired deeply. It wasn't so different from the way humans had once lived, before technology had taken over their lives. Later, Jack was invited to participate in a ceremony. It was something he had been told would happen only when he was fully accepted by the tribe. The ceremony was one of great significance, a celebration of unity between the people and the land. The entire tribe gathered in a large open space, surrounding the central fire. The flames flickered and danced, casting long shadows across the gathered beings. The atmosphere was warm, yet filled with anticipation. Jack stood in the center, surrounded by the tribe's leaders and elders. They were smiling at him, their expressions filled with gratitude and respect. The ceremony was not just a formality. It was a recognition of his place among them, a symbol of his acceptance into the tribe. Jack felt his heart swell with emotion. He had come so far since the day he had stumbled into their world, unsure of his place and his purpose. Now, he was a member of their community, and it felt right. It felt like home. The small alien being who had become his closest friend stood beside him. She was speaking softly, explaining the significance of each part of the ceremony. Jack listened intently, trying to understand the deeper meanings behind their rituals. The ceremony itself was a beautiful display of light and sound, with the tribe's music filling the air and their dances moving in harmony with the rhythm of nature. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen, yet it resonated with something deep inside him, a connection that transcended words and cultures. As the ceremony came to an end, the tribe members gathered around Jack, offering him gifts. They were simple things, crafted jewelry, small trinkets made from the natural resources of their world, and flowers that had special significance. But to Jack, they were priceless. They were symbols of trust, of friendship, of belonging. He took each gift with a smile, thanking the giver with words he had learned. As the night fell and the tribe gathered around the fire, Jack stood in the center, surrounded by his new family. He wasn't alone anymore. He had found a place where he belonged, a place where his past no longer mattered. The challenges he had faced, the monsters he had fought, and the trials he had endured, all of them had led him to this moment. He had earned his place among these beings, and in doing so, he had found something far more valuable than survival. He had found purpose, and for the first time in a long while, Jack felt truly at peace. The alien woman who had first accepted him smiled warmly at him, Her eyes filled with understanding. Without words, they both knew that this was only the beginning. Jack had come to their world as an outsider, but he was leaving as a member of the tribe, someone who had earned their respect and trust. The path ahead was uncertain, but Jack no longer feared it. He knew that whatever came next, he would face it with the strength he had gained, and with the love and support of the tribe that had taken him in. Jack woke up to the sound of birds singing and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. The sun was already high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the village. He stretched, feeling the soreness from the training he had undergone for the past few weeks. His muscles were sore, but it was a good kind of pain, the kind that reminded him he was alive and strong. The alien woman, his closest friend, had been by his side through everything. She had taught him how to survive in this strange world, how to respect the land, and how to understand their ways. She had also been there when the tribe had accepted him, and when the ceremony had sealed his place among them. Jack had learned more than just their language. He had learned their way of life. They had welcomed him not just as an outsider, but as one of their own. He couldn't help but feel grateful. Today was special. It wasn't just any ordinary day. It was the day the tribe had chosen for their yearly harvest festival, a celebration of the land and its bounty. Jack had been eagerly awaiting this event, for it was a time when everyone came together to give thanks for everything the planet had provided them. The festival was a grand occasion, full of dancing, music, and feasts, but it also held deep spiritual meaning for the tribe. For them, it wasn't just about food. It was about the connection between the land, the people, and the universe itself. Jack had been asked to participate in the festival, and he was both honored and nervous. He had no idea what he was supposed to do, but the tribe had made it clear that his presence was important. They had already given him a beautiful garment, a flowing robe made of soft fabric that shimmered in the sunlight. He put it on, feeling a sense of pride. It wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of his place in the tribe. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was family. As Jack stepped outside, he was greeted by the sight of the tribe preparing for the celebration. Some were gathering fruits and vegetables from the fields, while others were arranging decorations made of flowers and vines. The air was filled with excitement and energy, and Jack couldn't help but smile. It was a beautiful sight, one that reminded him of the Earth celebrations he had once known, before the war, before the destruction. The alien woman appeared beside him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic. Jack nodded, his heart racing. "I think so. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm ready." She smiled, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Just be yourself. That's all we ask." The ceremony began as the sun began to set. The tribe gathered in a large circle, their faces glowing in the firelight. The sounds of the music filled the air as the leaders of the tribe began their chants, calling upon the spirits of the land to bless their harvest and ensure another year of prosperity. Jack stood beside the alien woman, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. The tribe was his family now, and this moment, their shared celebration, felt like something he would never forget. As the night went on, Jack found himself swept up in the festivities. He danced with the other members of the tribe, laughing and feeling the warmth of their acceptance. There was no fear in his heart, no uncertainty. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt truly at home. The feast that followed was a grand affair. The tribe had gathered fruits, vegetables, and meats from the land, preparing a spread that was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The flavors were rich and unlike anything he had tasted before. Sweet, spicy, savory, all mixed together in a harmony of tastes. Jack ate, his hunger satisfied, but his heart was even more full. He had found a place where he belonged, a place where he was appreciated for who he was. Later in the evening, as the tribe gathered around the fire, Jack sat beside the alien woman. The stars were shining brightly above them, 1,000 points of light twinkling in the night sky. Jack leaned back, feeling the warmth of the fire on his skin, For the first time since he had arrived in this strange world, he felt a sense of peace. The alien woman turned to him, her eyes soft and filled with understanding. "You've come so far," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've found your place here, Jack." Jack nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "I never thought I would. I thought I was lost. But now, I'm not." She smiled gently, taking his hand in hers. "You were never lost. You were always meant to be here." As the night wore on, and the tribe continued to celebrate, Jack realized something important. He had been searching for something his whole life. Purpose, connection, peace, and now he had found it. His journey had led him to this moment, and it was a moment he would treasure forever. The tribe had accepted him, and in doing so, they had given him a new beginning. The stars above seemed to shine even brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating with him. Jack knew that whatever the future held, he was ready for it. With the tribe by his side, he would face whatever challenges came his way, and he would do so with the strength, the wisdom, and the love that he had found in this new world.